Hey guys, welcome back to Installation 00. This is my vlog series and today we talk about Chief and his mortality. The Believe ad campaign came out for the release of Halo 3. It was a fantastic live-action documentary-style series that interviewed various veterans of the Human Covenant War and their memories of the Battle of New Mombasa and their memories of the Chief. Now, the Believe ad campaign itself has had a turbulent time in the community at large as to whether it can actually be considered canon or not. I am currently aware of at least 3 turnarounds where it has been dropped from canon, then recanonised, only to be dropped again. But I believe it is canon, given that some events of the Believe campaign has appeared in the Halo Encyclopedia, and a referenced conversation with an employee of 343 Industries somewhat justifies it. CIA 391 on Halopedia was informed by the 343 Industries employee that the Believe campaign is actually canon, and I quote, "Stuff that marketing makes is never canon until we mention it somewhere else. That said, most of the Believe ads are treated as canonical. Even the future stuff like the Museum of Humanity and the Bubble Shield. Is everything canonical? Well, probably not without caveats. And stuff that hasn't been addressed like the bubble grenade are still subject to change or outright deletion." Now, the Museum of Humanity made an appearance in the Halo Encyclopedia and the bubble grenade in the Starry Night trailer turning up in Halo Legends, so arguably the Believe campaign is canon, at least as far as the way he defined it. So now, onto the meat of this Master Chief sandwich.
For the first time in 43 years, Lieutenant Shah returns to the site of the battle.
What is that?
A shell from a sniper rifle.
It's amazing there's still so many remnants out here. Where's Master Chief's grave?
I don't think anyone really knows. There was a ceremony 5 years ago, over there. Just as a symbolic gesture. The coffin was empty.
Why was the coffin empty?
No Spartan could be listed as KIA. They could only be listed as MIA, missing. So it could be said that no Spartan was ever killed in combat. So the ceremony was tribute more than a burial.
Doesn't look like much.
The chief told me once that no soldier should be honored for doing what is expected.
Do you believe that?
I did, and I still do.
So for the first time in 43 years, Lieutenant Shah returns to the site of the battle. The site of the battle was of New Mombasa. That was in October of 2552. That makes this documentary taking place in approximately 2595. Later, the interviewer speaks of Master Chief's grave. A ceremony took place 5 years before, in 2590, as a symbolic gesture and tribute to the Chief. So from this, can we deduce that at some point prior to 2590, Master Chief will die? How he dies exactly is anybody's guess. If he goes in the real sense of death, then it will have to be the most legendary way possible, punctuated by courage, bravery, unflinching resolve and self-sacrifice. Now, that being said, Chief was briefly reported as dead during the ad campaign for Halo 5, but that was later redacted and explained in lore as simply a monumental cock-up. I actually posed the question of Chief's death on Twitter, and it blew up a little. Evidently, it was a divisive subject. I'll stick a link in the description if you're a glutton for punishment and fancy reading up on it. If I'm brutally honest, there is no end that I would deem more fitting for Chief than a noble death, one that makes any sacrifice so far seen pale in comparison. It was discussed in the Twitter thread that Chief could simply retire or be promoted up to Admiral and thus no longer be a frontline soldier. There were talks of being a teacher, teaching the arts of war to new Spartans. The Master Didact had quite a nice ring to it. Loads of ideas were thrown around, including the likes of Troy Denning, author of a couple of the Halo books no less, weighing in on the conversation. Like I said, it was a very divisive subject, but what did come out of it was 2 very polarizing views. Chief needs to live, and Chief needs to die. I am as big of a Halo fan as you can get, and Chief, not just because he's the front man of the franchise and the iconic character, so to speak, of all the Halo games, but because of who he is, his personality that's been established, and what he represents is hands down my most favourite character in absolutely any franchise. But I have to admit, as painful as it is to admit, I do believe that Chief needs to die. Let me clarify that although the finality of it would be bittersweet, there would be ways that he could die and not die and achieve the same effect. Chief needs to be absent for an undisclosed period of time. Do you remember after Halo 3 was released and we finished the fight, Chief went away. Other games came out, new stories were explored, and while Chief was always there in the back of our minds, it was nice to explore other facets of the Halo universe and remember how pumped everyone was when they saw Chief return in the first trailer for Halo 4. Halo Infinite is shaping up to be a return to form. With luck, it will be Halo being reborn and taking the mantle as the greatest video game franchise once more. If, as the name implies, that Halo Infinite's scope is as massive and perhaps spans over several what could be considered campaigns, but all under the Slipspace engine, then when the story comes to its climax in what should be the greatest game series in history, Chief has to die. It doesn't have to be permanent. I know that's a complete reversal of what I've just said, but it has to feel permanent. I know it might not be a popular concept. I know how much I hate seeing a character die only to be back in the next minute due to a convenient plot point. But Linda has flatlined and died and yet has been resuscitated and brought back. A dozen Spartan 2 washouts died during their augmentation surgeries, yet the vast majority have been rehabilitated and become active Spartan 2s. And Spartans, in theory, can live significantly longer than the average human being. There are even Huragok in Halo that can rebuild flesh, bone and organs as fast as a normal one can rebuild technology, so there are a plethora of lore reasons as to how Chief can die. It seems as final can be, but he can be brought back perhaps a decade later, in a canonically explainable way. Imagine the hype around that, Chief absent from Halo for a decade, and suddenly reappear as unexpectedly as the emergence of the Flood in Halo Combat Evolved, to save what I hope is a more united galaxy from a new, unimaginable threat. Please be the precursors, please be the precursors, please be the precursors. Halo would absolutely explode. Now don't get me wrong, this position is tempered somewhat by the fact that a vast majority of people in the Twitter thread, and I'm sure in the community at large, believe that since Master Chief is the front man of Halo and really is the iconography for the Xbox, as the greatest IP on the Xbox, shouldn't die and can't die, and that Microsoft wouldn't let 343 kill Chief off because he is their biggest selling point. But I still believe that in some degree, as has been implied with Bungie's end in Halo 3, Chief does need to go away for a little bit. The Believe campaign suggests Chief will die in 2590. We don't know how or why, but it's there, hanging in the air like a patient prophecy waiting for time to pass. Chief is a Spartan and can live significantly longer than an average human, and he can be promoted out of active duty, or he can go missing in action, or as close to a final death as you can get. He is a living legend, but he is not immortal. One way or another, Chief is going to die. And when it does happen, as long as it is handled correctly, I truly believe we will all feel the loss in a very personal way. For different reasons, I'm sure, but I think the loss of Chief will be felt by the Halo community more powerfully than any loss in any other franchise in history. Never have I met people with such passion and vested involvement with a story than with the Halo community. The stage is set for us as players, or rather Spartan 4s, to actually take a lore position. Our own characters could well take the stage as the new centre of the Halo universe? Why else do you think that multiplayer is now canonically explainable in universe? I've already got something in the pipeline to explain this and justify it in some degree, so bear with me. But with us as the new centre, that also sets the stage for Chief to take a measured step out of the main storyline. His death in an ultimate sacrifice would be a tear-jerking and powerfully emotional end to this stoic warrior's story. And we will be moved and empowered by his sacrifice to carry on in his spirit as the protectors of humanity. We are all, Chief included, only human after all. So, Chief is going to die. And when he does, we will be stronger for it. For no matter what horrors are released upon the day, they cannot match the reply of soldiers emboldened with his spirit. An army of Master Chiefs unto themselves. Believe. Thanks for watching. Stick your comments down below and I look forward to what you have to say. I want to give a quick shout out to my patron Miguel Lopez, who jumped on board recently and took the first of 7 positions as the holder of the mantle. Over at the Installation 00 Patreon, you can support the channel by stepping into the domain and acquire a tier, a constructor, a sentinel, a monitor, a metarch, a reclaimer or a holder of the mantle. You'll gain access to exclusive content and early releases of videos. The higher your tier, the more you get, up to and including access to the Discord server with your assigned title, personal shoutouts, direct access to me for thoughts, ideas and discussions, early access to Halo Forge technology we develop, Installation 00 themed merchandise, and if you're quick, discounts and even free custom battle damaged Spartan armor plates. Pleasure to have you in the domain. If you like Halo lore discussed to insane levels of detail, hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon so you're told the second a new video hits the shelves. If you really love the channel, be like Miguel and consider heading over to Patreon and supporting the channel over there. It would mean the world to me and would free up more time for me to put into this Halo content and other Halo related goodness. Take it easy everyone, and find peace in the domain.